The doctor was at his son's Little League baseball game, and it was a very routine game. The season wasn't going well for the doctor's son's team, and in fact, his son really only had maybe a couple hits all season long. The son really wasn't a game changer or anything like that. And the doctor was very busy with a lot of things, and in the midst of the game, it got to be the ninth inning, and his son's team was down 1-0, and they had one person on base, and there was 2 outs. It was almost the end of the game. His son got up to bat. He figured probably, well, his son would either strike out or maybe hit a ground ball, and he would be thrown out at first base. Nothing big. So he stayed. He was trying to be a good dad, and he got a call, emergency call. Now somebody else could have taken the call. He's a doctor, but he decided, well, this game's not really going very far, so he took the call, went into the hospital. Then the game was over. When he got home, his wife told him, "Your son hit a home run." There was someone on base, so that's 2 runs, and they won the game. A home run. Never could have imagined his son would have done that. Felt pretty bad that he had left the game, but he felt even worse when his wife said he rounded the bases, came to home plate, looked down at the home plate. The first thing he did was he looked up to the audience to see his dad. Precious moments with our family. Moments that sometimes you just don't get a second chance. And you miss out.
Amen.
Matthew chapter 18.
John,
Yes.
this is particularly important today in view of what happened in Minneapolis.
Tell us about it.
A gunman went into a church and shot 20 people, killed 2 children. 2 killed.
17 injured.
Are there things that sometimes in the busyness of life, things that take priority over our kids and over our families? Matthew chapter 18, verse 10, Jesus said, "See that you do not look down on one of these little ones. For I tell you that there are angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven." Angels who answer to God for children on earth. I don't have the theology on that, but I know that's something special.
Yep.
Some have said guardian angels, whatever you want to say. Angels that are there looking in the face of God on behalf of children. Jesus said, "See that you do not look down on one of these little ones." Now, in their culture, children were, pushed aside, not valued much, not thought of much. Maybe when they became 12 years old or became adults, they were all of a sudden recognized in the home. But for the most part, they were just out of sight. And today we kind of reversed the thing. We worship youth today. Yet when we worship youth, do we really value our families, our children? On your introduction there, on your outline, I put down that your real life, we've been talking about real life in Christ, your real life in Christ initially shows up in the unique way that you interact with those who are closest to you. Now, I'm going to focus on kids tonight, but this applies to beyond, our relationships with our husbands, our wives, our close people in our lives, whoever those people are. Do we put a priority on those relationships? And what I'm going to do here, you'll see on points 1 and 2, I'm going to talk about it from the viewpoint of mothers to children, looking at the psalm, or the proverb, that's all about women and their value in the home and the value with the husbands and the family and all that. That's in Proverbs 31, virtuous woman chapter they call that. And then I'm going to look at it from the viewpoint of the fathers, using the father story that Jesus told us about the father and his son who came back home and all that, the prodigal son, in Luke chapter 15. So those are the 2 points we're going to cover. But again, let's think about this. If our jobs are more important than our families, then our families really aren't very important. Now, we're going to Proverbs chapter 31. Let's turn over there. Let's talk about the mothers and the children and the families. Proverbs chapter 31. Last chapter of the Proverbs. We can read a lot of verses in here, but I'm just going to read a couple of them, and you'll see them on your outline there, verses 26 and 27. And what I want to talk about, this might not just, of course, apply to mothers developing their children, but fathers as well, the whole family supporting and developing kids in the home. In Proverbs chapter 31, look at verse 26. In verse 26 it says, regarding the women, the mothers, she makes linen garments. She sells them. Okay, that's not what I want. That's verse 24. I'm sorry. My eyes are bad. Verse 26. Verse 26. She speaks with wisdom and faithful instruction in her tongue, or is on her tongue. Verse 27. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. So looking at those 2 verses, what is this telling us about the mother in the home?
She's important.
She is important. What kind of role does she play?
Leader in the household.
Yep, a leader.
Guardian.
She imparts wisdom, right? She gives faithful instruction.
She's
She
wise.
watches over the affairs of her house. Oh, and she does not eat the bread of idleness. Let's break this down. On your outline, look at point number 1, letter A. First of all, parents, this is not just mothers, fathers as well, give your children wisdom. David, let's take David for example here. David was a successful king. Was he a successful father? A disaster. We just highlight the fact that he was a great king, a great leader outside the home. But as you know the story of David, what kind of family did he have?
Train wreck.
A total train wreck, someone said. He messed up home, you know, had one son kill another son. He had another son rape one of the daughters, his sister. Yeah, I mean, we could go on. His own son Absalom rose up against him and tried to take away his kingdom. And we could go on with the soap opera life of David at home, which a lot of people overlook. He was a disaster and a failure as a father. Now, moms. When a mom is really, how should I put this? Is really excelling in the home. Is that going to have an effect on her own personal life, what she would want to do, how she would want to do things if there wasn't a child in her life? Does that affect her?
Of course, yeah.
How does it affect her?
Yeah.
She makes sacrifices.
She puts everybody else first.
Okay, puts everyone else first. She puts her life on hold.
Right.
Or she forms her life around what other people, their needs are.
Mhm.
So I've had a group that said she got the leftovers, and I'm like, that's because you're looking at it the wrong way. You're not getting the leftovers. You just need to make your life go along with what they need you to do for them.
Sure. We made a personal choice not to send our kids to public school. We homeschooled our kids, and we could have had her Razzle go out and get a full-time job, but for their younger years, for the most part, she didn't work at all. She had a part-time job here and there, but she made sacrifices. And it wasn't until our kids went off to college that Razzle said, "I'm going back to college, and I want to be an RN. I want to get my BSN." That's what she did. But for all those years we were raising our kids, and I'm taking care of my church family. She's taking care of our family. She was, well, look at this. It says here, verse 27, she watches over the affairs of her household. Now we'll get to that in just a minute. But That's a big chore, isn't it? Let's go back to verse 26. She speaks with wisdom. In other words, I put down on your outline, she gives good advice. And what she's doing actually is not just giving advice, saying, hey, what would the world do? She's saying, what would God have my children do? So on your second point there, I put down that she gives them God. She not only gives them wisdom, but she gives them, it says in verse 26, faithful instruction. So faithful instruction isn't good worldly advice. That's faithful to God kind of instruction. This is the way God would have you to live. And so she shows them how to be godly. She shows them how to be gracious. She would even tell them, a mother would, a good mother and a father as well, in a home, she would tell her child, hey, that's the way the world acts, but that's not the way you're going to act. You're going to follow God. So she gives them God, she gives them wisdom. And then in verse 27, as we've already noted, she watches over, it says, the affairs of her household. And I put down, she gives them guidance. She helps them to see how to live properly. This is, again, reinforcing this is the way that a godly person would live. And so she's guiding them, looking over the affairs of her family. Does anyone else have a different translation there, verse 27, when it says watches over the affairs of her household? Anybody have a different wording there?
Actually,
Watches over the ways
activities.
of her household. You know, I don't know, it seems like to me, and this is the way it was with my wife, and I've seen this with other mothers too, it's like they've got eyes in the back of their head.
Yeah, we do.
Somebody said, when God wanted to be everywhere, He created mothers. They just are. They got their eyes on, and they're multi-dimensional. They can do 5 million different things all at once. When a guy is just a single-minded person, amazing. Women are amazing. But we're all challenged to be involved in this way in the lives of our children. They're to be valued. If we're going to be real, living the real life in Jesus. I mean, God is pictured as a father. And the church is pictured as the bride of Christ. And so there's these analogies of good parenting in the Bible. And so, we're going to watch over the affairs of our home. And then the last one I put down, this is the big one now. We've talked about this already a little bit. But at the end of verse 27, the last part of it says, she does not eat the bread of idleness. What picture do you get right there? Doesn't eat the bread of idleness? That's a little antiquated there.
Busy.
She's busy. She's not lazy. Not sitting around putting on 100 pounds by eating all this bread, right? That's all she's doing. She's active. She's involved. And we've already said this, she's selfless. She gives up her life. And this isn't just about parents, this is about how we pour ourselves into the lives of other people around us. We care about them. We are living real life so that others can see the life that they can have in Christ. Real life is life-giving. You're giving your life. Jesus gave His life on the cross. So I put down, you're actively involved in their lives. She keeps her family busy. One translation says, she keeps her family busy. And there could be the temptation for a mother to say, well, I'll put up with this duty of these children that have been assigned to me. I'll put up with this duty, and then, after it's over, I'll get on with my meaningful life. Well, how about the meaningful life that is taking place in their home? The lives of their children in the home. And the father, too, likewise, needs to be involved. Anyone know what Proverbs 22, verse 6 says? Maybe you know the verse. Train up a child the way he should go. When he's old, he'll not depart from it. It's not a promise, that's a principle. Because, you can be, God was the best parent ever, right? Did He have children that messed up? Yeah. So we can't keep them from messing up, but we can give them a path to go on. And then hopefully, even if they do stray from it, when they're old, they'll come back. That's a principle. So anyway, we're developing our kids. We're interested in our families. We're pouring ourselves into our families. Now, let's talk about a good father. Let's go to Luke chapter 15. We'll skip all the stuff at the front of this story. We know that the son went away, realized the error of his ways. He's going to come back home. He blew his father's inheritance, wild living, did the wrong thing. He's sorry. He wants to go back home. Jump into the story of Luke chapter 15 now in verse 20. Verse 20. Let's back up. Let's see. Let's go back to verse 17. Verse 17. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired men have food to spare? Here I am starving to death. I'll set out and I'll go back to my father and say to him, Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired men." Verse 20 says, "So then he got up and he went to his father, but while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him." So when the son is coming back home, how does the father feel about the return of his son?
Joyful.
Happy.
Does he give him a good scolding when he comes home? Won't even let him give his confession. "Dad, I messed up." He just gives him a hug. It says, I love this fact that it says he was filled with compassion. And then he ran to his son. His son didn't come. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. So I put on your outline there that fathers, and mothers, parents, we need to find moments in their lives where we can celebrate our children. When was the last time you celebrated your child, and how did that go? What did you do? How did your son or daughter feel when it happened? You celebrated them. I'm not talking about just buying a birthday cake once a year. Are there other times we can celebrate our children? Yeah. In this case, he was emotional. He had a heart of mercy and empathy. He felt for his son, felt bad. He had compassion on him. Now look at verse 21. The son said to his father, "Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son." So how does the son feel?
Shameful.
I don't even deserve a second chance. I'll just be one of your servants. I don't feel worthy to be your son. But this father, as we know in the story, he's able to get past this mistake. Again, he's not scolding his son. He's not giving him a lecture or a lesson. And so, when our children disappoint us, it does hurt. We thought, well, yeah, it should have made a better judgment than that. Why would you do something stupid like that? We see the mistakes they make, but in the final analysis, we need to make sure we don't hold on to those disappointments. Just like with anybody else, especially with our children, it's hard sometimes not to do this. We need to make sure we're not holding grudges. We're not remembering the history. Just erase it. Let's give them a fresh start. That's what this father is doing. You go down to verse 22, it says, "But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fatted calf in and kill it. Let's have a feast and" what? Let's see if you're reading with me. "Let's have a feast and celebrate." And there's that word, verse 24. "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He's lost, he's found." So they began to celebrate. So, when a child makes a mistake, or when they have a history sometimes of making mistakes, what we need to do is make sure that they feel like when they're coming home and when they're saying, I know I messed up, we need to make sure that they see a picture of total acceptance. Not, well, okay, I'll be nice to you today, but then tomorrow I'm going to hold it against you or whatever. No, total acceptance, total erasure of a mistake, and it's a clean slate. And there's total acceptance. We reaffirm them when they fail. And in the case of this, it was a robe, a ring, and Reeboks. You got a robe, you got a ring, you got better than Reeboks, you got some really nice shoes, sandals, on his feet. then let's party. When you kill the fatted calf, that's the calf you've been saving up for a special occasion. You got it all fattened up. Now we're going to celebrate. The best people that you can be real in front of is the people that are closest to you. I don't care whether you're a mother or a father or a parent or a good friend to somebody. When you have somebody in your life, you need to make sure that you show that you care about them. Make sure that you're happy in the happy moments. And even when they messed up, you're still going to be happy and celebrate with them, as we see here with the father. So what we need to do, like the mother, we need to develop them. We need to give them wisdom. We need to give them the resources to have and inspire them to have godly living. I mean, the mother's going to be an example, and the father in the home, as well as giving them instruction. And then we need to make time, like with the mother. Life is all about relationships. We can spend a lot of time making a lot of money or doing things that bring attention to ourselves. Look at this accomplishment. Or we can actually choose to spend time with relationships, with people around us, especially our family. Develop them. And then we've talked about celebrating them. And is it easy for fathers to show emotion, by the way?
No.
I was raised by a stepfather. The only time I saw him get emotional was when he got really mad at me and put my head through a wall, kicked me around on the ground. I didn't see much emotion. Never heard my father say, "Hey, I'm proud of you. Good job. You did great." Never heard that. Never heard him. I mean, this father kisses his son, throws his arms around him. Fathers gotta do better, huh? What do you think? And I never did that with my son either. It's funny, huh? You're raised a certain way by your father, and then you have a son. You say, "I want to do better." Nah, I did pretty much the same thing with my son and daughter, and I regret it. But you know what? They're adults. So they make up for it now. I love hugging my children now. As adults. I wish I'd have done it before. We need to be emotional with our kids. Need to reassure them that when they do make mistakes, that it's all forgotten, all forgiven. When we do that, you know what we're doing? We're being real in the lives of those who are closest to us. Maybe I said some things tonight that, with a couple minutes we have left, that you want to share. Maybe personal experience, maybe a question, maybe a comment about what we said tonight. I'll open it up. What do you think? Jim?
I think the way you were raised is normal to you.
Yep.
That's all you know.
Yeah. And that's no excuse not to do better, but
So somewhere you have to learn to do better. That's going to be a change. It's not what you learned growing up. It's not what you experienced growing up. So you've got to go somewhere to get that. It's got to come from somewhere. It doesn't just happen.
yes. Listen.
I like the Proverbs 31 where she gives instructions of kindness. And my verse says that.
Instruction of kindness.
Yeah.
What verse was that now?
26, verse 26.
Oh, really? Verse 26 it says instruction of kindness.
I like that because, like kind of like you said, you know, like I should be giving my kids instructions of kindness and not so lecture and like yelling or, I like that.
Yeah, that's good. Instruction of kindness. Yep.
Mine says kind instruction is on your tongue.
So this other NIV uses the word faithful instruction. It's more, yeah, it's like kindness. You know, I was, another thing quickly, in verse 27, I wrote down what the Message translation says. And when it says she watches over the affairs of her household in the Message translation, it says, she